Hello and welcome to another edition of the 81 All Out podcast. I'm Sidvi, and joining us today is Mohammad Isam, who is the cricket correspondent for Cricinfo in Bangladesh. Isam is based in Dhaka, and for the last over a decade, actually, he has been reporting stories out of Bangladesh about the Bangladesh cricket team, and often is my a single source for news about Bangladesh cricket. Also joining us is Ashoka, who is part of the 81 All Out gang and who is regular on the podcast. So, hi guys.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Yeah. So to start with, Isam, I mean, I have to start with this because this is, one of the biggest stories to have come out of cricket, and it puts the game of cricket itself, it pales in comparison to what happened and what you went through. So tell us a bit about Christchurch, and I read a lot about what happened there, and your wonderful pieces as well, describing the atmosphere and tension that the players went through. But tell us about, there's been a bit of time that has passed now. Have you been in touch with the players, and what have they been? What is their mindset like going into the big tournament like the World Cup? How much have they gotten over it, and will they ever get over such a thing?
Thanks, Sid. To be honest with you, I think they're over it on the short-term basis, in the sense that they would have to keep it on the down low. I don't think it'll help them in a big tournament. I think more than the World Cup, they'll be away from home for about 75 days, give or take. So I think it'll help them not to think about it. But from what I've heard and from the conversations I've had with a number of players over the last month or so, I don't think it'll ever leave them permanently. I don't think. I think it's similar to. It's actually the Sri Lankan players who went through the Lahore attack. I've spoken to Thilan Samarawira once. A couple of years ago, he was the Bangladesh batting coach at that time, and he mentions it quite frequently in conversations. Whenever it comes up, he's glad to talk about it. It's a topic that comes. So it's been like 10 years since that thing happened. But someone who was directly involved, he doesn't forget it. And I feel that it'll take a very, very long time for the Bangladesh players to come at peace with it. But at the moment, they've stopped talking about it in public. They hardly mention it to me even. But I can feel it. Like, I recently met Mahmudullah in the cricket board. He was talking to someone, and I went into that room. And one of the first things he mentioned was, how was I coping with it? So it's also because we were all there, 20, 21 of us. It's that sort of bonding as well, which is why he asked me. But I think he does speak about it. And you can't forget the fact that they are stars and people will ask them about it. Like when we landed in Singapore from from Christchurch on the following day, there were a lot of Bangladeshis who asked Tamim, Mahmudullah, and the other players what happened, because everyone wanted to know it from them. They read it everywhere, but they wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth, to speak. So I think it does give you, when you think about it, it's not a great feeling, but I think there are positives to come out of these things as well. For the Bangladesh team, I think young guys were there as well, so they have a hard time forgetting it. Excitable kids, they would always talk about it, but I think they have to keep it down now that they're already in Ireland, and then they'll be going to the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, Bangladesh cricket has always come across to me as, one of the most passionate they have one of the most passionate fan bases, and even the way they play their cricket, there is a lot of passion that goes into it. I mean, cricket, often when you see Bangladesh play, it seems like much more than a game there. There is something else that is very powerful there. But does such an incident, which is a matter of life and death, where they were just 2 minutes away from a tragedy, with such an incident, has that sort of given a new perspective both to the players as well as what you're noticing with the fans? And do you feel like they don't do that well in the World Cup? I mean, I'm just assuming they could do very well, but if they don't do that well, do you feel that fans could be a little more forgiving after this because of what has happened?
Unfortunately, Sid, I would I would love to agree with you, but we have a set of fans here who are very passionate when you talk about them positively, but at the same time they forget very easily. So I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think it will add too much to say to give them some sympathy. It obviously the fans are very concerned when it happened, but I think 2 months is a very long time in the age of the internet. So by the time the World Cup starts in 4 weeks, I honestly don't think that it'll come up as a factor. It should, it must, it could have, because you're saying that they're very passionate, they love the team, they love the players. But judging by, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but judging by how the fans reacted to the jersey and how all these things keep happening in Bangladesh cricket, very interesting. But you don't really think when a jersey is launched, you don't think it'll become a national issue. It'll reach the parliament where the prime minister will talk about it. You don't think about those things. That's how it happens. And I think that shows that from the prime minister to the most ordinary person in the country, everyone loves cricket, everyone talks about it. And the World Cup is huge in Bangladesh. I think you can say that maybe in India the passion is dying off a little bit because there are other sports now, other things to talk about, other things to do, other forms of entertainment. In Bangladesh, the main national conversation is cricket. It starts with cricket and then you can go into other things. So to answer your question and to finally answer your question properly, no, I don't think Christchurch incident will lessen the burden of the Bangladesh players.
Yeah, I think in terms of there is a certain arc in fandom in with different countries, and I think Bangladesh is probably where India was in the, I would say, early 2000s. In the 2003 World Cup, when India lost matches early on, players' houses were stoned and all that. I mean, that was for India, that was taking things to an extreme. And I don't think, I mean, a 2007 World Cup as well. I think Bangladesh is pretty much in that arc of hoping, and the hope is really, really high. And I think India, after 2011, after they won the World Cup, and then after the IPL is really took off to another zone, I think India's reaction to their team is slightly different now. You don't hear too much of effigy burning, and you don't hear much of these stone pelting and all. I think because
you're giving ideas to fans. Don't do that.
Okay, yeah, I should. I should. But coming back to Christchurch, what is talk about yourself? I mean, okay, there are fans can be rational and all that, but yourself and as a cricket writer, somebody covering cricket, is it something that has given you a new perspective? And when you write on the game now, do you feel that you come into it in a different kind of slightly different zone?
Absolutely. I think there are two sides to it. First of all, I would talk about my profession and how writing under pressure. It was my first sort of writing about a real incident. Cricket is obviously real, but cricket, something outside cricket. I had to report on a real sort of a terrorism attack on a mosque, and then the Bangladesh team was involved. We were very close to getting attacked. So that has given me, I think, a lot of confidence in covering everything. As in, if you can do that sort of thing, maybe other things become easier. I think that's how you play a fast bowler and then other medium paces become easy for you. Something like that. I think that's, first of all, that's one thing from my perspective in terms of being a journalist. And obviously looking at these things very closely, you realize that you live in a bubble, especially on a tour, Sid. You would know this. I mean, on a tour, you actually live in a bubble. You don't really know what date it is. You just look for the day you're going to leave, or a match, maybe you're chasing an interview. Interestingly, I was chasing Kane Williamson's interview that morning. It was a 50-50 thing. He was supposed to give a fitness test. If he was fit for the test match, I would have taken his interview. But then, I don't know whether you remember this, but Team Saudi was named as the captain for that test match. And Kane Williamson had to leave because he didn't go through that fitness test. So I started that day chasing Kane Williamson, and then I got chased out by a terrorist. I mean, so that's the sort of thing. Maybe it obviously gives me a new perspective of life, and I do question myself at times, like what prompted me to run over there. I think all these things are in destiny, maybe. And I think when Tamim made that second phone call, by that time I was prepared to go and save him, which is a ridiculous thing to think right now, because what I was up against was was an automatic weapon. I mean, what was I thinking? And the first time I saw the Bangladesh team bus, I thought the team bus was being attacked. But then they ran out, and then I think I got the greatest relief of my life that no, they're all alive. I counted them, and for that whole 24 hours, it went by in a flash. But now it seems it went by in a flash. But at that time, every minute felt like a torture because we were cloistered inside this stadium, at the Hagley Oval. We were inside this large sort of the main pavilion where the guests sit from the Christchurch area. So we were stuck up over there for 4 hours. I think every minute was excruciating. Everyone started to panic because every hour we were hearing the death toll going up, and we were not sure if it was in other parts of Christchurch as well. We were not allowed to go in just near the window panes because, well, no one was sure what was happening. So that 4 hours really, I mean, I would never like to go back there, but that 24 hours went by very quickly. So I felt that when it comes to, I think journalists, they are a little misunderstood at times. Like maybe when we ask too many questions, someone who stands around or hears this or sees this press conference in a live TV, people can wonder why we ask so many questions or why do we bother about so many things. Because at the end of the day, I think storytelling, journalism, reporting, you need to know what's happening. So I think when I ran over there, part of me was a journalist. I wanted to know what was going on. I think that curiosity or whatever you call it, that nosiness, I think these things come with the territory. I think I don't know whether anyone thinks that they're born a journalist, but when you have been around for 10 years, you get that, you grow that sense of curiosity to know everything. When I met Tamim for the first time, the first thing I told him was, I'm sorry. And he's like, no, I can understand. He said, this is New Zealand. How can you believe me? That's the whole point of it. Like
You said sorry because you had initially thought he was joking, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing and it's also terrifying. And I guess the next, this is something that you have to live with now. And over time, you may the memories may slightly fade, but you're never going to forget it. Which brings me to listener question. We have Sudarshanan7 who's asking that if this Shakib missing the team photo, does it concern you? It seems like one of those star behaviors which isn't good for a team sport.
No, it doesn't concern me at all because the team is aware of Shakib's stature in Bangladesh cricket, which is extremely high. And we can't forget the fact that Shakib is a big game player. He does well in big tournaments, big matches. I think he is already forgotten about it. I think, to be honest with you, the team doesn't really care. They know. It's obviously, it doesn't sound well that he didn't turn up for the team photo, but there will be more team photos. I don't think it's something to be too worried about, but of course, he could have avoided it. He could have just turned up for the photo. Nothing would have.
This is kind of a norm how Bangladesh cricket is set up in terms of players and stuff. Like, what would you make of the World Cup squad that they have picked?
Yeah, I think it's the best team that they could have picked, frankly. The two questions that was being discussed was, of course, Taskin Ahmed and Imrul Kayes, why they were not being picked. And in front of them, they picked Liton Das and Abu Jayed. I'll just give you a brief explanation. I think what happened was Taskin wasn't fit when they were picking the squad. And he hadn't given a good vibe from the one, list A game that he played. So they obviously wanted him. They had picked him for New Zealand, but he had an injury during the BPL. So he missed out in New Zealand and his recovery was quite slow. The ankle, the ligaments he tore, it took him a little bit of time. So I think that's why they didn't pick him. And Abu Jayed impressed in New Zealand. He didn't take a lot of wickets, but he did bowl well in conditions where the ball, it offered a bit to the bowlers. And he's probably the only guy who can swing the ball. You have Rubel, who's an out-and-out fast bowler, who will be the enforcer if he plays. You have Mashrafi, who will just cut the ball both ways. It'll be difficult for Mashrafi in England. You have Jayed, who, it's like, guys, it's a bit like picking Adam Dale in '99 World Cup or Tom Moody, thinking that they might be useful full on a bit of a cloudy morning, maybe. So he's not being picked for all the matches. He's basically being picked for a condition. So that's one point. And Imrul Kayes was not picked. I think it's because of his how poorly he played against West Indies, although he did score a lot of runs against Zimbabwe. Now, the selectors were a little unkind to him when they didn't pick him in New Zealand. And I felt that maybe Litton was getting a little too many favors, despite not scoring a lot of runs. But the main thing in Bangladesh cricket is you ask anyone in the Bangladesh team or among the senior players or management, they are really, really impressed with Litton and the fact that he might do something one day. I think now they have an example to show. It's a bit like an Ashraful sort of a conundrum. Like, look, he did well against India in the Asia Cup final. You can't beat that. I think there's an argument over there that against Bumrah and against, I think it was Ravindra Jadeja, and it was a strong bowling lineup. He did score 121, but then he didn't score much afterwards. So that is a bit of a tricky call, but still I feel it's very close. It's not as if Imrul Kayes would have won them a lot of matches, or Abu Jaid is going to, or Taskin is going to win them a lot of matches. They're just taking a call. And the fact is Taskin is in the Ireland squad, so you never know if there's an injury or they think that they want to change one player before May 23rd. So that might come in. But I really doubt whether Imrul Kayes, unless there's an injury, he would come in.
But so following up with that question, that Imrul seems to be kind of capturing the spirit of the last 5 years of Bangladesh cricket, right? Like 2015 is when you kind of knew that Mustafizur is going to be the next big thing because you won against South Africa, you won against India, and then there was a slight dip, and then England came home, you won a test match, and then Mehdi Hassan was the next big thing. So it is also, and then Mosaddaq came in and he kind of performed in a couple of matches, and that in context with what Imrul has done. So Imrul has had phases where he was like really, really good and really consistent, and then when you think that you solved that problem, and his form dips, and that's same with Muhammadullah as well. Like in 2015 World Cup, he was kind of walking on water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the Muhammadullah of late is not even a patch on what he was in 2015. So there seems to be a sinusoidal thing where you guys reach a peak and then you come back down. So what seems to be the issue there? Why is this kind of wild fluctuations happening all the time?
Yeah, and you can go back to Ashraful, even Tamim at the start of his career was exactly what you explained Mahmudullah is having, or what Imrul Kayes has been having for a very long time. So just to go by case, Imrul Kayes obviously very inconsistent in terms of series by series. He does well in one series and then you'll just forget that he did well. I think that counted against him when he was being picked for the World Cup. He was, I recently when I was covering one game in Chittagong, I was sitting in, just on a preview day, I was sitting outside just the nets. He was crossing me and he asked me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I just found out some stat for you." He said, "What?" I said, "You have missed this number of years in cricket by just not being informed. You missed out on 1 year." So what you said, Ashoka, is very interesting. He had good years and then he followed it up with a really bad year. Example, 2010, 2011. He was not around for 2012. He came back in 2014 for a while as a one-day player, and then came back into the test team. Then he became a test player. He wasn't in the one-day team. So his form is not always consistent. That is one problem I think that Mashrafi and the senior players have with him, is that it's not consistent behavior as well. So I think his body language is sort of has had a effect on what the selectors or the management has thought about him, or the senior players. The senior players have a lot of say in Bangladesh cricket. Secondly, you mentioned Mahmudullah. That's interesting, actually. I don't disagree with you fully. He did play very well in the 2015 World Cup, but from 2015 World Cup, he had a bit of a downtime in those three series that you mentioned, Pakistan, India, and South Africa. Then Hathura Singh rediscovered him as a T20 hitter in the slog overs or in the last five. In that 2016 sort of window at the start, Bangladesh played a lot of T20s leading up to the World T20. You'll go and check his strike rate. It's remarkably different. He was around, I think all Bangladeshi players are around the 110 mark. He just shot up. he became this big hitter, and then he started to get call-ups to CPL and PSL. Very interesting. And he's played very well in the Nidihas Trophy last year, won Bangladesh couple of games, even in that really difficult situation against Sri Lanka. When Shakib called the team back, he went back, he scored that winning 6 against Isuru Udana. So again, that's another problem. He now has a role in T20. He has the similar role in the last 10 overs of an ODI. You'll see him do that in the World Cup. If he's in good form, he can really ramp it up for Bangladesh in terms of run rate. But in Test cricket, he really has a lost role. I think now he's not really clear what he has to do. He scored a counter-attacking 100 in Hamilton.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I was about to say that. Ironically, he made 100 recently in tests.
Yeah. So again, that was a very counter-attacking 100 where Neil Wagner was just bombing them with bouncers, and then they realized that if they just played fine, they're going to get some runs. And the wicket was a little slow on that day, so he got away with it. And again, all those matches, he's been playing one fall short after scoring 30 or 40. So maybe I spoke to Hathur Singh about him, I think, a few months before Hathur Singh left his job. And he told me that, yeah, there is a bit of confusion there. He is a hitter in T20s. He's a very good hitter in ODIs towards the end. But then does he want to be that hitter? Does he want to be that test cricketer? I think there's a bit of a confusion there.
So coming to this point and just taking off on it, I don't know, I hope I was right when I saw that stat about Bangladesh struggling to chase big totals in the last 4 years. I checked the stats and it said that they had won only one match where they chased 280 plus since the last World Cup. You can confirm that. But is that been a big concern for them? And I feel that if Bangladesh have to chase a big total, the Mahmudullah becomes such a crucial factor for them because of how he can play in different gears, shepherd the middle order, and as well as hit. So is that something that you have noticed, and is that a concern going into England where they're probably going to be 300 plus scores?
Yeah, that's definitely a concern, and I think that has been really been a concern for Bangladesh for, I would say, around the last, even though they have done well since 2015, it has been a concern. It has definitely been a problem that even totals of 250 becomes difficult for them, mainly because they really don't have big hitters down the order. You cannot expect Bangladesh, honestly, to maybe score 280 or 300 every day. Under pressure, they might do it once in a while, but they are a middling 250, 260 side. That's one of the reasons why they keep saying that they should play more away from home, because they play so much in Mirpur, where the wicket offers them about 240 if you bat first. And on a bad day, you're going to be bowled out for 170 because the ball keeps low. So coming back to what you asked, yeah, I think they are a good batting lineup. If you bat first and you decently, they would bat. If they batted really well, they would score a 320, 330. They are not a 350 side yet.
Isn't that weird when you say that this is a team that can't chase 320? Because among the teams in the World Cup itself, I think Bangladesh have a very solid and experienced middle order, right? They have Shakib, they have Mushfiqur, they have Mahmudullah, and you add Shabir Rahman, who's been around for a bit, and then you have Murtaza, who can hit it. So that's a solid 5, starting from like number 4, right? On top you have Tamim, and you have Shami Sarkar, who's been around for a while. So you have players, tried and tested players in that squad, who can step it up and who have stepped it up in previous occasions. So it is kind of weird that it is the stat that Bangladesh has. Like in the many years, they haven't chased 280.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think, as I said, they play so many ODI series at home, Ashoka, that at the end of the day, they have it wired in them that they're going to chase. If they chase, it's going to be 250. And you'll see them chasing a lot of 250 scores. They do it quite well. 250, sometimes they'll score in tricky chases against good bowling lineups. They can still manage it. But in the last 5 years, even after the 2015 World Cup, when it was a boom for Bangladesh, it hasn't been a sort of an England-style boom that their players are used to seeing 320, chasing 320, or setting up 320 and the other team maybe fall. a few times it has happened. Against Pakistan, they scored 329. They won the game. It happened a few times. They did chase 260 odd, I think, against, I can't remember exactly who it was against, but they did. There was a few innings there, but that habit isn't there. You're right. They have a very good middle order. Potentially, they can do it. See, against New Zealand in Cardiff, two batsmen got set. It was, even after losing 4 wickets early, they won the game against New Zealand in the Champions Trophy, which put them in the semi-final. So it has happened once in a while, but it's not like Evan Morgan's England that they'll keep doing it again and again, because they don't play in those sort of wickets.
So talking about the bowling now, imagine it is a typical batting wicket, smallish ground. What would be your? I mean, no real clouds in the sky, so a great batting day. What would be your bowling attack for such a setup? I mean, Mashrafi, I guess, is there because he's the captain, but who would be the other bowlers?
In my book, it should always be Rubel, the number 2. But the coach doesn't really prefer Rubel. He prefers Mohammad Saifuddin, the all-rounder. So I think Bangladesh, if you ask me, ideally it should be Rubel who would bowl in the middle overs and then cut down the runs in the end. I think Mustafiz and Rubel combines very well in the slog overs. They've done well in the past, even like in the last 12 to 18 months, they've done well in that sort of those overs. And Rubel bowls well in the middle. Saifuddin is an interesting one. He's an all-rounder, and he has that ability to get a wicket with a slower one or with a bouncer. But he he does get smashed sometimes. So David Miller got after him in a T20 in South Africa, and within a few weeks, Darren Sammy went after him in the BPL, went for 30 odd. So he has had those blips. But that's the best thing about Saifuddin, that even after those blips, he has bounced back very quickly and he's done well. But as you have said, that on a very flat sort of wicket in England, I would always prefer Rubel in the middle, because Mustafiz needs a bit of a roughness on the wicket to, like a lot of spinners do. Mustafiz needs a bit of cut from the wicket. It has to come from the wicket, off the wicket. He doesn't do anything in the air. Mashrafi obviously can move the ball at times, but again, he also relies a lot on the wicket, giving him that the ball that can stop on the batsman. But Rubel is different. Rubel, obviously, he can bowl the reverse swing. He has a bit of a sling now in his action. He still has a little bit. So the Yorkers can come in. I think he's Bangladesh's best Yorker bowler at the moment, but a little underrated, even after doing well in the World Cup. He does have injury issues, but I think what the coach didn't like about Rubel, and I'm just going out on a limb to say this, Rubel doesn't bowl well in Test cricket. He's the worst. He has the worst average. Just go and check. Minimum 3,000 balls. He's a nightmare. The first time the coach saw him bowl was in a Test match. Attitude probably isn't great, to be honest. So maybe he might be a second choice after Saifuddin. But on that wicket, I think Shakib will be handy. Any wicket, I think Shakib will keep it down if Mashrafi can keep it down. And then if they don't play Rubel, they'll most likely be playing Saifuddin. So that's another gamble.
Yeah, it always seems to me that the problem for many Bangladesh players start when they come into international cricket. But until then, there is so much of potential, and that Bangladesh really have a problem of selecting players. It is the maintenance of that talent and that fitness and the sort of the retaining their form over a period of time that seems to be the issue. Let me just get this quick question in from Snehal Pradhan, who is a columnist and former cricketer as well. She's asked about the structure and health of women's cricket in Bangladesh. So if you can just talk a bit about that, it'd be great.
Yeah, I saw that question. Yes, the structure is club cricket again, and there is a regional tournament. They play 2 or 3 tournaments. It's all one-day cricket. They're trying to introduce. I think there have been talks of introducing longer form or the shortest form, but I think there's not a lot of money in women's cricket right now. The BCB is trying to hold a lot of tournaments, but I think their main focus is the national team, the national women's team, which has done well last year. To be honest, at their level, they've done well. They've beaten India in the Asia Cup in Malaysia. They did quite well, so that helped. Maybe a little more money will come up. There is a lot of people who want to sponsor women's cricket because it's such a beautiful story that they have beaten India in one game, and then they beat India again. They've done well in that tournament, and then they qualified for the World T20. So the structure is club cricket, like in the Dhaka League, how the men's cricket is played. So they have two tiers over there, and then they have the national tournament, which is a number of regional teams that they play for.
Okay, okay, interesting. So, coming to another question from from your colleague, I guess, Ronak Kapoor. Are you the most influential person in Bangladesh cricket? He says he has heard that Nazmul Hasan asks you for tickets.
Said, look, because the Mirpur Stadium is so small, 25,000 people. There might be a time when Nazmul Hasan will come and say, "Please, can I have a ticket?" Because everyone is looking for ticket. But no, I'm not. I'm not at all influential. I'm just another cricket journalist working in Bangladesh cricket. Of course, I've been working for about 10, 12 years. There are far better journalists, far more experienced journalists in Bangladesh. You might know a few of them. But because not a lot of them write in English, they don't have the sort of exposure that I have had in the last 7 years working for Cricinfo. So I'm really blessed that I'm working for Cricinfo, but definitely, I also think that Ronak is extremely powerful. So that is true. But my part is like really a big exaggeration.
Okay, let's just say Ronak is the most powerful man in Indian cricket then.
Yes.
No, but I actually remember meeting a few back in 2006 during the Champions Trophy, which was held in India. There were quite a bit of a Bangladesh journalists who had come to cover the game. I met quite a lot of them. I spent time with them. And one of the things they sort of mentioned was the same thing that you're mentioning now. They said that because they write in Bangla, they don't have as big a reach as many of the other people who write in English, and they were thinking that they were trying to ask if we would want to collaborate in terms of translations or something like that. So I think yes, for you to be writing in English on a global website, a really popular website, I think makes a big difference to people. More than to the people in Bangladesh itself. I think for the outside world to realize what's happening and to understand Bangladesh cricket, I think you play a big role. But talking about the language, is that something that do you think in English or do you think in Bangla? How do you write? Do you translate a lot when you write? Because I guess when you speak to your players, they are speaking to you in Bangla anyway, right?
Yeah, I speak to them in Bangla mostly, except Tamim Iqbal, who likes to give all his answers in English. And then it becomes a very difficult thing for the Bangla guys to, then they have to. Anyways, I think, I have to speak to them in Bangla on most occasions. And I've grown up in that sort of environment where my mother, my father, they like to read in English. They made sure that I always read, English books and everything. So that was one thing. And then I read a lot. Mate, I think I've read all your pieces in Cricinfo. Whenever you've written in those Pakistan series, India-Pakistan series, and obviously Rahul's pieces, I've memorized his book. And he's the reason. I told him when I met him last year in Bangalore that he's the reason I became a journalist. And I have his book by heart, the Pandits from Pakistan. And again, I think one thing that I sometimes feel I'm a little different from others in Bangladesh, or even some of the other international reporters that I've read a lot of crap books as well, like really bad cricket books. But the point being that I really, really love reading small books, and I've read Shoaib Akhtar's book. Just to mention, it wasn't well written after he made his debut. That part is poorly written. But as I'm trying to say, that I read a lot, so maybe that's why. I get that perspective from players, and I have that sort of. I keep asking, and also don't forget, I play cricket as well, so that helps as well.
You're a leg spinner, right?
No, left arm spinner. How can I be anything but?
How can you be anything but a left arm spinner in Bangladesh, right? Yeah.
That's blasphemous to ask people, man, such questions.
No, I should have known this. He had written this in a piece and I edited it. I just pulled his leg by saying he's a leg spinner because I'm still waiting for the great Bangladesh leg spinner to arrive. And I'm waiting for the great Bangladesh mystery. I mean, I think Bangladesh produced so many spinners that they should have had 8 great spinners by now. So
You're right.
I have hope. I have hope that the great Bangladesh leg spinner will come and take 600 wickets. So,
Yeah.
talking. I mean, we have spoken a lot about Bangladesh cricket and team and all that. But talking about you yourself, I mean, uh, growing up would have been quite a heady time, right, to follow Bangladesh cricket. I mean, I'm talking about the '97, the famous win against Kenya in the ICC Trophy, qualifying, for a World Cup, then beating Pakistan in that World Cup, then getting international status. I mean, all that is like a huge steps for a cricket team, right?
Yeah, we lived through it. I mean, the kids who grew up in the '90s, the kids like me, we remember the dates, the moments, the time, the number of balls some batsmen played. So it's a bit like India winning in '83. Obviously, was a big deal for people who were teenagers at that time, right? And then in the '90s, obviously, you saw 2001 when they beat Australia in those two tests. Those were amazing times for
Yeah.
us. It wasn't as big that scale, but ICC Trophy against Kenya. Kenya was a good side at that time. Bangladesh always had a hard time beating them. Actually, Sid, what really made it such a big moment was Bangladesh struggling since '79 to qualify to the World Cup. So every year they got close. 79, 82, 86, 90. I remember in 1994, it was the best of all time. The squad was brilliant. They've won a lot of regional tournaments. Then they went to the tournament in Kenya, and it was a huge flop. So, and '97 was probably the last chance. I think after that, the government wouldn't have supported cricket because it was becoming too expensive. They're doing everything to make sure that they won the ICC trophy. And again, when they won the tournament, the celebrations coincided with the Bengali New Year on April the 14th. The final went through 2 days, 12th and 13th of April. I mean, you can imagine me remembering dates. So it must have been something else. So yeah. So mid '90s, and it moved so fast. In '97, they won the ICC trophy. In 2000, they played their first Test match. So that whole transition during that time, it was obviously there was a lot of help from Jagmohan Dalmia in the ICC table, but the fact that Bangladesh's passion could be shown in just 3 years, that was a great effort by the BCB at that time. Saber Hossain Chaudhry was the president. Very interesting. Like he was a board president in 1996 or late '95. He went to a board meeting, the first board meeting that he had, and he asked everyone that I want the team to play Test cricket. Is it possible? And everyone laughed at him. In the matter of 4 years, he made sure that they played Test cricket. That's something to remember for Bangladesh. I think he's forgotten. That's how it works these days. But that sort of contribution, the fact that he had that vision, and we were kids at that time. Every day there was something happening. They held I think you remember the mini World Cup. Now they
Yeah.
call it the trophy. Tendulkar scoring that 140. You had someone called Philo Wallace. He's struck 100
Clayton
in the
Lambert and Philo Wallace opening the
yeah,
batting.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. And South Africa winning that trophy. I mean, how can you forget that tournament?
Yeah, their only ICC trophy,
Right,
right?
right, exactly. Yeah, and they came with an understrength team. Jack Ellis was just coming out as an all-rounder. So our memory were filled with these players. And the fun thing is, which I miss these days, is that we always had a second team. My second team was Australia. My cousin's second team was Pakistan. My mother's second team. By second team, I mean that we obviously supported Bangladesh when they were playing, but because Bangladesh played so few international matches back then in the late '80s and early '90s, we always supported one team. We felt very close to Sri Lanka when they won the World Cup. In my house, my mom loves Saurav Ganguly, so she was India. And later, I found out my father-in-law. My father-in-law was a diehard Pakistan fan, and I had so many diehard Pakistan fans, diehard West Indies fans in the '80s. So we all adopted these teams as our own teams. Like I think we all do when Argentina and Brazil plays the World Cup. We choose one of those European teams or these teams. So cricket was always big in our growing up years. Yeah.
And in terms of, one thing I found in terms of the players in Bangladesh is that, and I found it very, very touching, was that in the initial years at least, I don't know how it is now, but each one was always referred to by their nickname. You had Habibul Basha, you had Pilot, and then you had
Pilot.
Pilot, and then you had Nanu. and then you had all those nicknames, and journalists always refer to them by their nickname. Even in reports, you would read about only the nicknames, and I found that very touching. I felt that that's a really big bond that they share with the fans and journalists.
Yeah, it's a Bangladesh thing. Everyone has a nickname here, especially people from the north. So it's I recently made a quiz on Sporkle. I'll send you the link of all the nicknames of everyone who's ever played Test cricket for Bangladesh. So or I think I've made a list of everyone who has ever played for Bangladesh. I've made that list of nicknames. So yeah, I think I would say more than half they all have one nickname that everyone. I think it's a very Bengali thing. You'll go to any household in Kolkata and you'll find a Koko or a Babu.
Yeah, the
when you
dark
go.
naam, right? What they call.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what is Akram Khan's nickname, if you can remember?
No. He doesn't have a nickname. He doesn't have a nickname.
See, I thought that would be a case because he was such an imposing figure. Like he was.
No. Sid, it doesn't come from his figure or it doesn't come from his cricketing days. It's given by the family. So Nannu, the chief selector now, his name is Minhajul Abidin Nannu. It came from his family. Khaled
Oh,
Masood
okay.
pilot.
Yeah, and Aminul Islam Bulbul.
Right, Bulbul is the name of a bird.
Yeah.
A lot of Bulbuls. There's a very famous actor in Bangladesh called Bulbul Ahmed. So it's a very common name, and people have this nickname.
Yeah, and Khalid Mashood was a pilot, right?
Yes, and so the interesting thing is in the northwestern area, Rajshahi, they give English nicknames to their kids. So
Okay.
a cricketer called Cornell, Colonel. That's how that's his nickname. So
interesting. This is like in the Bombay they have this Kanga League, which is the wet weather tournament there, and several players back in the 70s and 80s, several players used to get nicknames of West Indian players. So you had Marshall Patil, and you had people all nicknamed after West Indian cricketers depending on how they played. So it's nicknames. I think nicknames in cricket is a very interesting theme. It should be explored for a long form piece.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so coming back to the relationship between cricketers, how do you balance it? I mean, I guess, you're close enough for Tamim Iqbal to call you when he is his life is in danger. But at some point of time, you also have to criticize Tamim, right? How does that work?
I mean, I really like the guy because I think he's quite honest and he's changed a lot. He's become so matured now. Tamim had a long career where it took him 7 or 8 years to realize how good he is. I think since 2015 he scored a lot of runs, but the balance is very hard to find in Bangladesh. But so far, I think I'm probably one of the few who I don't really socialize with them. I mean, there's no culture of that. But there's a lot of long conversations we have off the record, and obviously we are now. I think one change is Sid. I think you can see it all over the world now. You have guys like Freddie Wild. You have guys like Tim Wigmore. You have guys like Will McPherson in India. You have a lot of young guys who are almost as old as the cricketers. In Pakistan, with Umar. I'm not saying that people are getting old, but I'm trying to say that you now get a lot of young journalists, really young journalists. I think a lot of these players are close to my age. I played against Tamim. I played against Mushfiq. I've played against Shakib once. So I have always been around their age group as well. So maybe that's why they sometimes feel comfortable. There's not a lot of people who feel comfortable talking to me. But I've had my problems with Tamim in the past, writing this, writing that. He didn't like this, I didn't like that. A lot of things have happened. But one thing that I really admire about Mashrafi and Tamim, the Mashrafi comes in too, they really know what a journalist has to do. So Mashrafi surely does. He's now a politician, so he knows a lot better than a lot of them. But I think Tamim is also coming to terms with the fact that, people will criticize him. And again, people will write nice things about him. He has gone through a lot. I think he has gone through a lot of trolling as well, which he never appreciated it. Then he realized that it's not about what people say about you. It's what you do in the field. So I think he focused more on cricket, and he's obviously scored a lot of runs in the last 4 years.
Having been a regular visitor to Bangla Cricket Forum, I'm imagining that Bangla Twitter and Bangla Facebook is equally like intense and passionate and critical and full of high energy.
Not Twitter. Twitter, I haven't found a lot of energy, but Facebook, it is like, I think I hear all my colleagues criticize WhatsApp in India.
Yeah.
Same thing for Facebook in Bangladesh.
Oh, okay, that level. Okay.
Okay, have they forgiven Rohit Sharma yet, or is it still?
I think
they have.
too soon.
I think
too soon.
Mustafi took care of it in 2015 series. Took him out 3 times, and then people just, as I said, Ashoka, they just forget about it. They move on. Now with the World Cup coming up, maybe, you don't know, they might get reminded of Rohit Sharma again.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. The fact that they forget is very good because you don't want them to go on going on about Rohit Sharma. But also, if the fact that they'll forget Christchurch so soon is also not that good a thing.
Yeah, there are good sides and bad sides, but I think one thing that really a lot of people have realized that it's not just a passionate crowd. You'll see a lot of people who really understand cricket, and not just old people. You have some of the younger guys, it's reflective in a lot of these writings that come off now. There's a lot of young Bangladeshi journalists. I don't know whether you know this, but I think now more than half the journalists in Bangladesh, they're, I think, less than 30 years old. So I'm now not part of that group. You have 20, 22-year-olds starting off from early in their internships and everything. I think that's the best part. I think with more young people writing about cricket, and you get a fresh perspective, but also you don't have that baggage about losing so much. And, I have met people who have never seen Bangladesh lose 40 games in a row. But I've also worked with people who have only seen them do that. So things change slowly.
So you're saying there are people who are coming up writing on cricket who haven't watched Mohammad Rafiq bowl?
Yeah, of course. They haven't bat. They haven't seen Habil Bashar bat. You'll see, I think journalists will come up.
Oh my
I
God.
think,
Seriously?
Yeah, they haven't, because
Dude.
Habil Bashar retired in 2007-8, in the end of 2007. So there's a lot of journalists who never seen him bat. I think there will be a time when there will be people who don't know Ashraful.
Oh my
Very
goodness.
soon. A lot of the best crowd these days.
That makes me feel extremely old because, of all, I remember following Bangladesh cricket pretty closely back in the early 2000s when they started Test area. Even before, of course, Athar Ali Khan and all, such a stylish batsman. But little when they came in, and Rafiq was always my favorite. My favorite if I have to pick a favorite Bangladesh cricketer, I have to go with Mohammad Rafiq. And that Test match in Fatullah against Australia, my heart broke for him. I mean, just that one match, Australia could have said, okay, for the Rafiq's sake, they will give him that match.
Also, he bowled very well in the Multan Test that Inzamam won.
Correct.
Inzamam, yes, of course.
He didn't man-cat one Shabbir Ahmed, I think, or Umar Gul, I forgot, right when they needed 1 wicket. People really don't talk about it, but I was there with all of them, and yeah, it also came up. The captain didn't mind later, but it was always because the batsman was actually walking out quite early in the last 2 balls, and Rafiq actually looked at him and he said, "Look, you're out. You're outside. I could run you out." He didn't do it.
Wow. Yeah, he did a Walsh. Yeah. Yeah. Ashwin would never approve of such things. There's one fun question we can probably end with, and that is from that is from Chin Music. At Chin Music, he says, talking about the Bangladesh World Cup jersey, which is your favorite, and does 2019 even rank in your list of favorites?
No, the 2019 ones aren't great. I think the best jersey that they wore was in the 2015 World Cup. It was a beautiful jersey. I thought they could have repeated it. They did repeat it for a few series, but then they just stopped wearing it.
Didn't you like the jersey that they wore in that tri-series against Australia and England in 2005 when Ashraful made those runs?
No, it wasn't great. And Sid, you should also check out their jersey from the 2000 Asia Cup. It is probably the worst one.
Okay.
Did it have... Remember, Sabah Karim got hurt on the face and his career ended?
Yes.
at
Okay.
that tournament. Definitely check out the
I've forgotten the jersey, but I'll definitely check it out. I remember the tournament though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Ashoka, you have anything else?
Nothing else. I was just as Isam was talking about their first test and how they accelerated. The only thing that kept coming back to me was, man, Sunil Joshi was man of the match in that, right?
Oh, yes.
And I was quietly going and googling that to see if I'm right, if my memory was right about it. Oh my God, that was such a bad moment, man. I mean,
Why?
I mean, in the sense that I distinctly felt that because at that point in time I was far younger and far more in the sense India centric support of cricket, and I thought these are the new guys, we will crush them and stuff like that. And Bangladesh comes and makes 400. Already you're like the fears of, because at that point in time there was this Jayasurya factor to take care of, because we go to Sri Lanka, we get hammered. I thought, oh,
Yeah.
this is another country that has popped up nearby to hammer us. So 400 in the first innings. And you see that we kind of lose wickets until Sunil Joshi comes and makes 90. He also, I think, picks up some 5 wickets. I don't remember this right. Yeah.
4-wicket haul. Yes.
Yeah, he does that, and then the second innings, Bangladesh collapses, and then Dravid comes and finishes it off, and it's a sign of relief. But I also keep thinking, man, is Sunil Joshi the man of the match?
And Sunil Joshi is their spin bowling coach now, by the way.
Correct.
Wow,
And Sunil Joshi was in Christchurch. I mean, he was in the hotel, I guess, but he was there.
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of 81 All Out. Mohammad Isam, a special guest to have and telling us all about Bangladesh cricket. You can read Isam on ESPNcricinfo. I'll link a few of the articles that he has written and follow him. He's going to be in the UK covering the World Cup and writing about Bangladesh cricket, and hopefully writing about a very special moment in their cricketing history. So you can follow us on 81 All Out on Twitter, and you can also subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes and Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts, and keep listening. And thank you so much.